Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed might think they're untouchable. They might believe that because they launched the most disgusting, cowardly, and vile attack on Roman Reigns in front of the entire world, that they somehow established dominance. But what they didn't realize is that their actions weren't going to go unanswered. Because when you target Roman Reigns, when you try to dismantle the foundation of the entire Bloodline legacy, you awaken something terrifying. And this time, that monster came in the form of Jacob Fatu. The WWE Universe is still in absolute shock, disbelief, and pure rage over what went down. We all saw it. Roman Reigns, battered, humiliated, blindsided by the combined brutality of Breakker and Reed. These two men didn't just try to make a statement, they tried to end Roman's reign, his aura, and his career in one night. The boos echoed, fans were screaming in anger, and the betrayal of respect cut deep. Roman, who had given everything to this business, who had fought wars for over a decade, lay on the mat like a wounded king betrayed by wolves. And just when fans thought all hope was lost, the WWE Universe witnessed a storm brewing. Jacob Fatu made his move. Fatu didn't walk out with a smile, he didn't come out to soak in cheers. He came out with rage burning in his eyes, his body shaking with fury, and every single step he took toward Breakker and Reed felt like a warning bell of destruction. This wasn't about glory. This wasn't about titles. This wasn't about making a name for himself. This was about vengeance, about blood, about defending family. Bron Breakker, arrogant as ever, stood tall and puffed his chest like he had conquered the tribal chief. Reed, smirking like he had just sent a message to the entire locker room. But what happened next erased those smug looks permanently. Jacob Fatu exploded into the scene like a force of nature, and the assault that followed wasn't wrestling, it was a punishment. The crowd erupted as Fatu launched himself into Breakker with a devastating spear that nearly split him in half. The force echoed through the arena, leaving Breakker gasping for air like a man drowning. Reed barely had time to react before Fatu spun on him with a violent clothesline that nearly turned the big man inside out. But Fatu wasn't finished. No, this wasn't a quick revenge attack. This was a methodical demolition, an execution. He dragged Breakker to the corner, snarling like a wild beast, and delivered a headbutt so brutal that fans swore they heard the crack from the nose of Breakker. Blood trickled instantly, the arrogance wiped off his face in a single blow. Reed tried to intervene, but Fatu grabbed him, lifted the massive weight of Bronson Reed with inhuman strength, and slammed him down with a Samoan drop that shook the entire ring. The crowd roared in disbelief. But the most chilling part wasn't the impact, it was the look on Jacob Fatu's face. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't celebrating. He was cold, almost detached, as if he wasn't attacking two superstars but rather delivering justice, the kind of justice you don't walk away from. Fans were left screaming, not just out of excitement, but out of sheer shock. Fatu wasn't saving Roman just for loyalty, he was avenging him with a level of violence that WWE hasn't seen in years. And here's where the story takes a dark turn. Because this wasn't just a one-night retaliation. Fatu didn't just leave Breakker and Reed broken in the ring. No, he left them with a message. As he stood over their lifeless bodies, staring into the camera, he roared only one word: Bloodline. That one word shook the wrestling world to its core. Because it wasn't just a warning. It was a declaration. The Bloodline wasn't dead. It wasn't finished. It was evolving. And Jacob Fatu was now the executioner. The arena didn't just erupt in noise, it erupted in chaos. Fans weren't just cheering Jacob Fatu, they were roaring like they had just witnessed vengeance unfold before their very eyes. And the cameras caught everything. Breakker clutching his ribs, Reed barely conscious on the mat, and Roman Reigns, still recovering from the earlier beating, looking up at his cousin with a mix of shock, gratitude, and even fear. Because make no mistake, what Jacob Fatu had just unleashed wasn't normal. It wasn't a rescue. It was carnage. Commentators were screaming at the top of their lungs, barely able to contain themselves. Michael Cole kept shouting about the brutality of what just went down, while Corey Graves insisted that Jacob Fatu had arrived in WWE with a statement louder than anything in recent memory. And the statement wasn't just aimed at Breakker and Reed, it was a shot across the entire WWE roster. But here's the part that left everyone talking. Jacob Fatu didn't stick around for applause. He didn't even acknowledge the fans. After destroying Breakker and Reed, he simply turned, locked eyes with Roman Reigns, and gave the slightest nod before walking out of the ring. That single gesture spoke volumes. The Bloodline had a new enforcer, and he wasn't here to play games. Backstage reports say that WWE officials were completely shaken by the scene. Apparently, this wasn't in the script. This wasn't planned. Security rushed out to check on Breakker and Reed, both of whom needed medical assistance immediately. Breakker was furious, yelling in pain, demanding revenge. Reed, however, looked rattled, like he had just realized he stepped into a war he couldn't win. And let's not forget the fans online. Social media exploded. Hashtags like hashtag Jacob Fatu, hashtag Bloodline Reborn, and hashtag Justice for Roman started trending worldwide within minutes. Fans posted clips of Fatu's spear on Breakker from every angle possible, calling it one of the most devastating spears in years. Memes popped up instantly. Breakker's arrogance shattered in one move, Reed being flattened like a pancake, and Fatu standing tall like a warrior sent from the gods. The entire internet became a battlefield of opinions. Some fans are calling this the rebirth of the Bloodline. Others are terrified of what Fatu represents. And then there are those who believe this is just the beginning of an even bloodier chapter in WWE history. Because let's be honest, when you unleash someone like Jacob Fatu, there's no way this ends peacefully. And here's the question burning through every fan's mind. Was this Roman's plan all along? Did the tribal chief know that Fatu was waiting in the shadows, ready to strike when the family was disrespected? Or did Jacob Fatu act on his own, fueled purely by blood ties and vengeance? The answer is chilling either way. Because if Roman orchestrated this, it means the bloodline has grown smarter, darker, and even more dangerous. But if Fatu acted alone, it means he's unpredictable, a loose cannon bound only by family loyalty and rage. Bron Breakker has built his reputation on being unstoppable, a wrecking machine who fears no one. But after what Fatu did, fans are questioning if Breakker's aura has been permanently cracked. Reed, known as the human tank, was tossed around like a rag doll, humiliated in front of the world. These two men set out to make their names by destroying Roman Reigns. Instead, they might have awakened the very nightmare that will end their careers. And think about the timing. Roman Reigns was vulnerable. He was down. The WWE Universe was ready to write him off, to question if the tribal chief's dominance was truly over. But out of nowhere, Jacob Fatu emerged, not just to save Roman, but to send a message. The bloodline isn't dying, it's mutating into something more violent than ever. And when you combine Roman's cunning, Solo Sikoa's ruthless aggression, and Jacob Fatu's raw power and unpredictability, you're looking at a faction that could dominate WWE in ways we've never seen before. This isn't just wrestling anymore. This is war. The aftermath of Jacob Fatu's destruction left a silence that even the loudest crowd couldn't fill. For a moment, the arena didn't feel like WWE, it felt like a battlefield after the bombs had dropped. Trainers rushed to Breakker and Reed, their bodies sprawled across the canvas like broken soldiers. Roman Reigns pulled himself up in the corner, clutching his ribs, watching everything unfold with that calculating look he's mastered over the years. And Jacob Fatu, he didn't so much as glance back as he disappeared into the shadows, leaving nothing but chaos in his wake. But the story doesn't stop at the ring. Because what happened next sent shockwaves through the locker room. Reports leaked immediately. The roster was split. Half the locker room was horrified. If Jacob Fatu was going to rampage like this, no one was safe. The other half, they saw it as justice served, payback for two men who crossed a line you never cross. Roman Reigns didn't speak after the show. No words, no interviews, no acknowledgement. He simply walked out with Paul Heyman at his side, his face unreadable. But Paul Heyman, he was grinning. He knew. He always knows. And that sly smirk confirmed everything fans feared. The Bloodline's next chapter had officially begun, and Jacob Fatu was the one writing it in blood. Meanwhile, Bron Breakker's rage boiled over backstage. Word spread that he trashed the medical area, screaming that Fatu had ruined everything. He demanded a match, demanded revenge, demanded someone put the monster in a cage. But officials weren't having it. Breakker's ribs were bruised, his pride was shattered, and no amount of yelling was going to erase what just happened. Bronson Reed, on the other hand, looked shaken to his core. The big man who prided himself on being unstoppable now seemed quiet, almost fearful. Because let's face it, when someone like Reed is tossed around with ease, it doesn't just break your body, it breaks your confidence. The WWE Universe kept the chaos alive. Fans debated all night. Some said Fatu crossed the line, that this wasn't just about family, it was about unleashing unchecked violence in a company already known for brutality. Others argued it was necessary. Roman Reigns has been targeted more than anyone in recent history, and someone needed to step in and prove that family isn't just a word, it's a shield, and it's a sword. Clips of Fatu's spear went viral instantly, with fans calling it one of the most destructive impacts since Goldberg's prime. Breakker, who had been hyped as the future of WWE, suddenly looked very, very human. And that's the thing, arrogance only lasts until you meet a force greater than yourself. For Breakker and Reed, that force has a name, and it's Jacob Fatu. But here's where things get even scarier. Insiders claim this isn't a one-off. Fatu's presence in WWE isn't temporary. He's here to stay. And if he's officially aligned with the Bloodline, then every single superstar in the company just gained a new nightmare to worry about. Imagine it. Roman Reigns strategizing at the top, Solo Sikoa unleashing raw aggression, and Jacob Fatu as the enforcer who doesn't talk, doesn't hesitate, doesn't care. That's not a faction. That's a dynasty of destruction. That's the kind of force that doesn't just dominate storylines, it reshapes the entire company. And the biggest question on everyone's lips right now. What happens next? Because you know Bron Breakker. You know his pride won't let him sit quietly after being embarrassed like that. He's going to want blood. He's going to want revenge. But does Breakker even realize what he's stepping into? Reed might back him up, but if Reed's confidence is shot, if his fear outweighs his loyalty, then Breakker could find himself standing alone against the most dangerous family in WWE history. The Bloodline saga has been filled with betrayals, wars, and unforgettable moments. But what Jacob Fatu did wasn't just another chapter, it felt like the beginning of something darker, something fans aren't ready for. And when the Bloodline evolves, it doesn't just grow stronger, it grows hungrier. Jacob Fatu didn't just make a statement. He rewrote the rules. The backstage cameras caught something that wasn't aired on TV. Roman Reigns, still bruised and battered, sat in the locker room with Paul Heyman pacing back and forth. The room was silent except for Reigns' slow, steady breathing. Then the door opened, and in walked Jacob Fatu. No words were exchanged, no hugs, no celebrations, just a long, intense stare between cousins. And then, Roman smirked. It was the kind of smirk that told the world, the Bloodline wasn't just surviving. It was rebuilding stronger than ever. But here's the twist. Solo Sikoa was there too, sitting in the corner, arms crossed, watching every move. The silent assassin of the Bloodline didn't say a word, but his eyes told a different story. This wasn't just about Roman anymore. This was about a family getting bigger, more dangerous, and maybe even more unstable. Because when you add someone like Jacob Fatu into the mix, you're not just gaining muscle, you're inviting chaos. Meanwhile, Breakker's fury boiled hotter. Reports from insiders say he demanded a meeting with WWE management. He claimed that if Fatu isn't punished, if he isn't suspended, then WWE has no order, no discipline, no backbone. But here's the problem for Breakker. This is Roman Reigns' world. And if the higher-ups have to choose between punishing Fatu or letting the Bloodline story explode into something massive, you already know what decision they're making. Bronson Reed, though, his silence said it all. The big man didn't storm offices. He didn't scream for revenge. He sat quietly in the trainer's room, staring at the ground, replaying that Samoan drop over and over in his head. When a man like Reed, who built his career on being unmovable, is tossed like a rag doll, the psychological scars cut deeper than any physical injury. And here's the thing. Breakker might think he's got this fight in him, but Reed doesn't look ready for another round with Fatu. And that leaves Breakker in a dangerous spot. Because fighting the Bloodline alone isn't just reckless, it's suicide. The WWE Universe has been here before. They saw Roman crush Drew McIntyre. They saw the Bloodline humiliate Kevin Owens. They saw Sami Zayn nearly destroy the family from within only to be beaten back down. But this feels different. Because Jacob Fatu isn't like anyone else who's ever stood beside Roman Reigns. He's not a strategist like Heyman. He's not a silent killer like Solo. He's not a conflicted brother like Jey Uso. Fatu is pure destruction. He doesn't wrestle for gold. He doesn't fight for clout. He fights for family. And when you fight for blood, you fight without limits. Clips of his carnage are still circulating like wildfire. Fans are comparing him to Umaga, to a prime Brock Lesnar, to monsters of wrestling's past. But the scariest part, he might be even worse. Because he has all that brutality, but also the loyalty of the Bloodline backing him up. That's not just dangerous, that's unstoppable. And don't forget the fans' reaction. The WWE Universe is split down the middle, and that's exactly what makes this story so explosive. Half the fans are chanting Jacob Fatu's name, celebrating his arrival, praising him as the savior who stopped Breakker and Reed from destroying Roman. The other half, they're terrified, furious, demanding justice, demanding WWE step in before Fatu turns the entire roster into victims. The division is real, and it's fueling the fire. But deep down, everybody knows the truth. This is just the beginning. Breakker isn't going to let it slide. Reed might be hesitant, but Breakker's pride will push him back into the line of fire. And when that rematch happens, when Breakker and Reed come face to face with Fatu and the Bloodline, the WWE Universe isn't going to see a match. They're going to see a war. And wars in WWE, they always come with casualties.